Good evening, everyone. Can I ask everyone to please take a seat because the time is 7:30 and we are going to start the meeting. Everyone is here. Just put it. Good evening and welcome to the Central Hounslow Area Forum. My name is Councillor Afzal Kiani and I am the chair of the Central Hounslow Area Forum. I would like to welcome you all to the meeting, and I hope that many of you were able to speak with some of our stallholders present today and receive some useful information and advice. As it is now just after 7:30 p.m., we will move to the formal part of the meeting where we will work through the items on the published agenda. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and private, and personal information should not be shared in the meeting. The recording will be made available for public viewing on Hounslow Council's YouTube page in the coming days. For tonight's proceedings, I as chair will be running the meeting and inviting people to speak. As we have a full and interesting agenda, I will endeavor to allow us as many people to speak as possible. With that in mind, I would ask members of the public to wait their turn and not to interrupt people when they are talking or coming during the contribution of others. It may, of course, not be possible for everyone here to ask a question due to time constraints. There are evaluation forms available where you can write down your questions and provide your email address, and a response will be sent to you directly. Please do submit any unanswered questions and hand them over to our community development officers. Could the community development officers please stand and show themselves to the audience? Do we have, how many we have here? Okay. And two, okay, thank you. Three. Okay. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence, declaration of interest and other communication from members. Any apologies were received?
Councillor Sharma.
Councillor Sharma. Anyone else? No, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. Good. Agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. We now move on to the minutes. We have the minutes of 9 December 2024. I don't propose to go through them page by page. Are members happy to agree the minutes?
Agreed. Chair, can I just point out that I was present, but I don't see my name on the list. Could that be amended, please?
Okay, we can make a note and amend that. Thank you. Agenda item 3, health presentation, community spotlight, followed by Q&A. The first presentation is the health presentation. This will be followed by question and answers. 4 years on from COVID, Hounslow Council and its partners are now about to consult on a new joint health and well-being strategy for 2006 to 2029. Kelly O'Neill, Hounslow's Director of Public Health, together with Stephen Forbes, the Director of Health and Social Care Integration, will present on aims to provide the community's overall health and seek out residents' priorities for the next 3 years. After this presentations, questions from the public, and then councillors, 10 minutes each. Kelly, can you ask you to? Councillor Lily Bath, can you introduce them, please?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to speak. Good evening, everybody. I'm Councillor Lily Bath, and I am a councillor in the Bedfont area. So in case you're wondering why I'm here in this area forum, I have a cabinet responsibility for adult social care, public health and health integration. So the health and wellbeing strategy, not all of it, but quite a lot of it comes under my portfolio. So, and I'm here with Stephen Forbes, who's the Executive Director of Children and Adults, and Kelly O'Neill, who's the Director of Public Health. So what we really want to do today is hear your views about our health and wellbeing strategy, which is in need of refreshing. So all local authorities have a plan, a health and wellbeing strategy, where they identify priorities around health for their local communities. And what we really want to do today is to hear from you around what is important to you in the wider sense of health and well-being, and we refer to physical and mental health, and how you can shape the priorities going forward for the borough. The strategy involves working with the council, us, and our partners, which are the NHS, organisations in the community. It could be voluntary sector community groups, and of course yourselves as well as the community. And together we want to be able to improve the general health and well-being and physical and mental well-being, as I said, of our local communities. While the strategy sets out a direction for the services to contribute to the improvement of our people's health and well-being, we're really hopeful that this time round that we really can have some conversations, local conversations with yourselves around what you think is important for you in your communities. I'm going to hand over to Kelly and to Stephen in a minute to actually give you a proper presentation and statistics around the health and well-being. But before I do that, I'm going to hand over to Councillor Samia Chowdhury, who is a Cabinet Member for Children and Education, and part of her responsibility is also around health. So I don't know whether you want to mention a few words. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Councillor Bath. It's really great to see that we are presenting this in the area forum. Health and well-being, it's extremely important, and this is the strategy which will be covering children's as well. So I'm the Cabinet Member for Children's Education Employment Skills. So I think without further ado, we'll hear from Stephen and Kelly about the strategy, and we will really welcome all your comments, anything you would like us to add in. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
It's not on, is it? No, I'm terrible. You can use this if you want. I've got a proper microphone. Yeah. Thank you very much. As both councillors have said, we do this every 3 years, and the last iteration of the health and wellbeing strategy, we followed quite a traditional strategy approach, and while we went out for some consultation, it was pretty much COVID time, so that kind of proper insight from residents we really didn't achieve in a really authentic way. So the way that we're doing it this time is to come out to all the area forums, have a proper conversation with groups of people in different areas, and then extend it a little bit further after we've done all the area forums to have conversations with different groups of people across the borough. And the idea is to stimulate conversation. What I've got in this slide deck is just some key measures that just allow you to give a bit of an understanding of what the key public health measures are in this particular area. And what I've done is that I've used the performance measures for the public health performance measures for this particular area and compared them to the rest of the borough. Okay, so I've start really by looking at some kind of social and economic indicators, because that's a really good measure of health in a population. And then we look at 3 different age groups, children and young people, working age adult, and adults over the age of 65 who will classify as older people. And then Stephen will come in and then have a bit of a conversation. Oh, grand, thank you.
2 seconds. Right, should be on now.
Can you? Oh, perfect. And then Stephen will come in at the end and so do a little bit of a roundup and just sort of point out some things that I may have missed. So, The first diagram here is a little bit busy, but what I'm trying to get across in this particular infographic is that these are the factors that influence health and well-being. And when we talk about health and well-being, often too many people focus on access to GPs, access to dentists, and access to pharmacists, and the wider NHS structure. And while all of those are important and there are some real challenges in that area, one of the things that we really want to focus on I'll keep my head straight, okay? I move around too much, apparently, which is why I use a microphone. So one of the key things that we're trying to focus on now is looking at those wider issues, not just access to the NHS, but rather the environment that we live in. And too often, public health is really focused on the environment that we're born into, that we live in, and that we die in. So, and this kind of issue of trying to improve health is often really difficult on the back of health and wealth. So one of the things this diagram does miss is that a real driver of improved health and a longer life and more years living healthy life is based on people's income. So the more deprived an area is, the less likely that health would be really good. And we're talking about that at a population level. So this diagram really does demonstrate the things such as housing, education, green parks, and how accessible they all are, and also the issue about perception of being safe within your communities. And one of the things that it really does point out is that fundamentally one of the key building blocks of better health is your relationships that you have with your family and your friends and your communities, and how much you feel included and loved by those people that are around you. And fundamentally, if you look at all of the sort of health issues and the poor health issues that we have, one of the really mitigating things that really drives a health improvement agenda is about that infrastructure of support that we have around us. So I'm going to first focus on the social determinants of health. And what I've done here, as I've said, is focus on comparing central Hounslow area to the Hounslow average, okay? And what you'll see in this is that this particular area, the indicators are actually probably, well, they are worse for the social determinants. When we look at the health of different age groups, we'll see that there is a little bit more comparability. So when we look at households that are overcrowded, and that's a measure of whether there are enough bedrooms in homes for the number of people that are living there, we see the Hounslow average is 14.6% of homes are overcrowded. But when we look in this area, it's 23.3%. So that's a significant difference. So more houses are overcrowded, and more families are living in overcrowded homes. When we look at central heating, now we think that most people have central heating. The average is 2.2 in the borough. When we look at this particular area, it's 2.9%. And again, that's quite a significant difference. When we look at universal claimants, these are the number of people that are either on low incomes or unemployed. The average is 141 people per 1,000 population. Excuse me. In this area, it's 168. So again, more people are relying on benefits. When we look at crime, and this may not be surprising given that we've got quite a busy pedestrian area, the crime rate for the whole of Hounslow is 86 per 1,000 population, and in this particular area, it's 103.5. So when we look at sort of access to green spaces and the ability for people to walk to green spaces, again, a really good indicator of how likely people are to use parks, that and the perception of safety. The closer people are to parks generally is seen as a really positive public health outcome. So the average walk for people in the borough is just shy of 300 metres. It's about 350 metres for people in this area. Probably the one social measure that this particular area has that's better in terms of that social infrastructure is accessibility to public transport. Now this is the public transport accessibility level is really a kind of a London focus, and it goes from 0, which is fundamentally really, really poor or no infrastructure, to 6. 6 is central London. The average in Hounslow is 2, and what we see is quite significant variation, and in this particular area it's 3. So this area has one of the best accesses to public transport. You might feel that's different, but it looks at that kind of wider bus, underground and rail. When we look at air quality, obviously air quality is a really good indicator of sort of the number of people that will experience respiratory problems like asthma and sort of symptoms like shortness of breath and wheezing. And these are one of the drivers of hospital admissions, particularly unplanned hospital admission. The whole of London is what we call an air quality management zone, which means across London there is nowhere that actually has good quality air. And you would expect that in an urban area. When we look at the air quality, which is fundamentally, it's vehicle emissions, not aeroplanes, it's cars predominantly. When we look at Hounslow for 2 areas, one is particulate matter, which is kind of liquids and solids that are irritants to the respiratory tract. For particulate matter, the average in Hounslow is 10.44, and it's slightly lower in this particular area, 10.27. And what you tend to find a little bit is where public transport is more accessible and people are more reliant on public transport, there tends to be fewer cars and there tends to be lower levels of particulate matter and also nitrogen dioxide, which is the other. And again, for nitrogen dioxide, it's slightly lower than the average in Hounslow. When we look at the next few slides, look at the top 5 health conditions by age group. So this first one is children. The caveat I would say here is it's based on recorded measures. So when recording in sort of health conditions is often a little bit hit and miss. But when we look at these indicators for children, across the board, our children in central Hounslow tend to be healthier for the top 5 conditions than other areas of the borough. So we look at autism and asthma and learning disabilities and ADHD, and we've thrown in smoking because we know that vapes are a little bit of a challenge now, especially when you see children using them. The percentage of children that are recorded in all of these areas is lower than the Hounslow average. However, and the other area that we did look at, and we've looked at this one because a number of people have expressed concern about the number of children that are obese, or overweight and obese. And this is data from what's called the National Child Measurement Programme. So this programme runs throughout the country and is able to tell us exactly at reception year, so children aged 4 to 5, and year 6, which is children aged 10 to 11, a height and weight measurement that gives us a sort of a BMI indicator. So when we look at those 2 measurements, we can compare ourselves across the rest of the country. And again, what we tend to see is children in more deprived areas have higher rates of all of those, underweight, overweight, and obese. But when we look here, the children are either comparable or slightly lower than the Hounslow average, okay, which is a bit of a surprise, but a really positive one. Problem is that when we look at 10 and 11-year-olds, and again the dark columns sort of on the bars on this chart are children in central Hounslow, we have this quite big shift. So for underweight, overweight, and children who are obese, we have more children. Now the one thing I would point out here is that the percentage of children, if we go back to the percentage of children who are, say, at reception age who are overweight, that's just over 10%. When you look at the overweight levels of children in year 6, you're looking at 15% and obesity at over 25%. Now we don't measure children at 15 and 16. But if we were to, you would see those rates are higher, especially for girls. And that's because, the access to physical activity or the want to do physical activity tends to tail off. But between those two points of reception year and year 6, This is a national problem where we see this quite significant increase, and that tends to be as a result of reduced physical activity, children choosing, or young people choosing what they eat, and the influence of really unhealthy food being advertised. And the unhealthy food advertising is an area that we in the Council have made quite significant strides on. When we look at working age adults, these are people aged 18 to 64, smoking levels are lower than the Hounslow average, but when you look at things like non-diabetic hyperglycemia, this is pre-diabetes, so this is high sugar level before you get to diabetes. When we look at non-diabetic hyperglycemia, diabetes and hypertension, which is high blood pressure, and those are all quite significant risks of sort of long-term conditions for cardiovascular health, etc. You start to see where there's quite a significant shift to an increase in the number of people with long-term conditions. Now, the diabetes part, as many of you will know, it tends to be higher in more diverse communities. We know that. It's replicated across the country. And actually, hypertension is a really sort of key indicator, as I said, of cardiovascular disease and heart attacks. And actually, that's quite modifiable. That's why sort of Jazz and the health outreach team and many of your GPs, if you're over the age of 40, are asking you to come into health checks so we can identify people who've got high blood pressure and take action to reduce that risk. When we look at the over 65s, this is where we see quite a significant difference. And one of the big things that we focused on, which I said right at the beginning, is people are living longer in general, but they're spending much more time living many more years living unhealthy lives. So by the time we get to the age of 65, a lot more people in this particular area have got high blood pressure, they've got diabetes, they've got pre-diabetes, obesity is still comparable, and coronary heart disease. And that really is a proxy of a sort of a population health. So one of the things we're really trying hard to do is how do we tackle at the earliest opportunity healthier lifestyles? So part of that strategy needs to be sort of supported by the NHS and supported by our communities about how do we make prevention really real, how do we make the healthiest choices the easiest choices, and how do we get people where they can to start really taking responsibility for improving their health, because it's a damn sight better living longer in being healthy than it is living longer having to rely on constantly being unwell or having to access services. Now I'll pass over to Stephen.
Fine. So to recap a little of what Kelly said, we are absolutely interested to hear your views on GP practices, the services that we run in the council. But what we wanted to do today was just open a bit of a conversation, because ultimately, to put it into reality what Kelly said, she mentioned a number of times, and it's evident through all the research, that deprivation, which put into layman's terms is how much collective money we have in our pockets within a local area, has a direct link to poorer health in adulthood into your ageing years. And if I take us back where that starts, at the moment, about 20% to 25% of our children present at school in reception age 4, not ready for school. And what that term not ready for school means is not that they're able not to learn, but they're not even positioned to learn. So the things that are covered by not being ready for school are being able to sit still and pay attention, to involve themselves in activities with other children, to regulate their own behaviour, some even to be able to sit up in a chair. We have a number of 4-year-olds presenting at school who haven't actually learned the motor control and the strength in the muscles of their core part of their body. And there's a whole load of factors that those children experience. And what our schools have to do is spend about the first year to 18 months of what should be learning time, getting those children ready to learn, dealing with all those things that are presented through the door. Now what happens, because we have really good schools in Hounslow, 97% of our schools are rated good or outstanding by Ofsted, is when our children get to attainment level, and that's GCSE, is they've caught up. But what they manage to do is they manage to attain just at the national average. And what we live in Hounslow is the second lowest wage economy in London. Only the people of Barking and Dagenham earn less, have less money in their pockets than the people of Hounslow. And what we also identify from the research is that our young people, when they're out there trying to secure their jobs, and it's what's called your first proper job, and we'll all have experiences, I certainly did, of doing a few part-time jobs between leaving school and going back to university and when I was in university. But getting your first real job, it takes the young people of Hounslow, and by that I mean 18 to 25, nearly twice as long to secure their proper first job. So they are, in essence, stymied through all of their childhood up to that age of 18, 25 by disadvantage and the experiences they have in their own family, in their own community. And whilst we do lots of stuff in terms of within children's services, working with the voluntary sector organisations and the NHS through the services, many of the things that we're talking about, i.e. readiness for school, and obesity, because obesity stocks up long-term health conditions when you're of working age in your 40s and 50s and impacts on your health by the time you get to 60 and 70. So that period of time that Kelly talked about we're all living a lot longer, but the period where we're living in health is also growing, stems way back to when you were a child. So my ambition, hope, desire, whatever I might call it, is that we could fundamentally in Hounslow do a generational shift. The average wage in London is about 47,000. In the UK, it's about 30 odd thousand. If we were able to deal with that stuff before children come to school, that readiness for school, and if we were able to deal with the issues of obesity before children come to school and as they progress through school, we might not just see our children attaining the average. If our children have the capability to catch up from that early years at school, they have the potential to fly and soar. And then they have the potential to compete with all the other children in London for those really good paid, steady jobs. Fundamentally, that would bring more money into people's pockets within our community. And in our generation, we could tackle much of the issues related to ill health by people having an extra 3, 4, 5 grand in their pocket every year. And that's why this matters, and it's why it's also really important to have a conversation with yourselves and any ideas and thoughts that you have about how we can deal with those things, because not all those things are solved by the services that we put in place. Many of those things are happening in some of your families or families you know of right now where it's neither appropriate nor the best thing for the state, people like me, to step in to resolve those matters of, does your child come ready for school? Does your child come to school already obese with a trajectory that their obesity is going to increase? So what we wanted to do was open this as a bit of a conversation. But as I say, as we always do, more than happy to hear any comments about NHS social care services that you might want to put on the table as well. At that point, Chair, I'll hand back to yourself.
Thank you, Kelly and Stephen. This is time for questions from the audience. Is anyone has any question for Kelly or Steve? Just wait for the mic, please.
One. There we go. The problems you're talking about stem well beyond what Hounslow can do as a council. You need to have people here from the Department of Education, the Department of Health, to actually realise what is going on. You are on the tip of basically being Pompeii, and Vesuvius is about to erupt, and by that I mean Rachel Reeves is about to can Hounslow Council and many other councils left, right and centre, and she has to raise the expense budget. So you are all running out of money very quickly. So in order to solve the education problem, you can also looking at how are you actually raising money? What type of society are you raising? Walk down Hounslow High Street, you've got loads and loads of coffee shops and food out in places. No wonder the children are eating well. and getting out because there's no shops for them. There's no shops for people to see, like, where you're going to get your first job from. As you said, 18 to 25 to get their first job. What jobs are there available for the children to look forward to? Working in a coffee shop? It only breathes the same cycle over and over again, and you are spiraling downwards and downwards. And then tomorrow, when Rachel says, right, I'm going to have to can all this money from you councils, what are you going to do? You've got to start getting the other organisations and say, this is a big problem, we need your help. We cannot solve this problem by ourselves, or asking the citizens of Hounslow to come up with some idea or brainstorm. You have to bring people in together and work together. If you don't do this, you're going to end up in a far worse situation in a few years' time.
Thank you, sir. Steve, would you be able to answer it?
So I agree with you. The challenge is much bigger than myself and Kelly and the council as a whole. It's something we need to do with our NHS partners, and I could probably bore you to tears sitting here for the next hour and a half listing all the meetings that Kelly and I attend across North West London, London region. But ultimately it is a bit about engaging with central government and setting out the situation. So just on that, we had a meeting with the Ministry for Communities last week. There were 5 of them came down to see myself and corporate leadership team colleagues, and we talked about, in the council, we have a business case for growth. We have significant ambitions that members have set out for job creation, housing development. We've been fairly successful over the last 8 years in terms of housing development, and we've been fairly successful in job creation. But there is still, I think, as you say, a huge challenge to go, and that needs some of the levers in central government and government departments to change. So I fed back to colleagues from the department that we need to see a change in how skills money, so there is money made available for adult education, for skills and development. That needs to change because we spend far too much time chasing after that money rather than actually getting it and using it. So that's one of the changes they could make in place. Likewise, some of the changes round about expectation on schools. I don't control schools directly, I support them in the borough, but there are some significant pressures on schools to perform against certain key thresholds that aren't actually useful for developing what I would call rich and rounded individuals. It's still a little bit too progression and attainment, not enough about giving people the life skills and the learning skills that you need for your adult life. And there is huge pressures on the NHS, and you'll have seen the most recent announcements from the government on that. But getting community health working better and not being reliant on acute trusts, hospitals, is the right direction, but it takes a change in how the money flows with patients. So there are huge challenges, but it doesn't stop us. I look to some of the smaller things that we do in our family centres, in our family hubs, in our 0 to 19 service, our health visiting, which is incredibly pressurised, that is actually about helping families. So it's not all someone else's issue, it is some of ours to deal with, and it is, dare I say, and it's where I always get a bit provocative, some of the community responsibility to deal with. I go back to Ready for School. I'm not in a position to intervene with families when they are thinking, do I read to my child? Do I spend time taking them out to the park? Do I take them out of the buggy to let them walk to develop their core motor skills? And that's the sort of stuff we do have to have a conversation in our community about. So I also get the thing about it's really difficult to resist the pressure of food advertising. But there's a bit about family pressure and peer support as well that needs to be worked out. So it's a multi-dimensional, faceted thing to challenge, but you're quite right, it's not something we can do on our own.
Stephen, is there anyone else? Just wait for the mic here.
Hello. First of all, thanks for doing this. I think it's really important and great that you're doing this. And also, if I just note, looking from here with the cross and the table with the cloths is reminiscent of the Final Supper. The view from here is very stunning. But yeah, so I've just moved into your area. I was working with the Ealing Council and we worked with the government as well. And before my health took everything from me, I worked in a consultation firm where we use psychology with creatives and we work as advisors. And a lot of what we do when we talk with businesses is we try to help them stop thinking with the neocortexian principles and think more with the limbic. These are the hemispheres of the brain. So when we look at the graphs and stuff, that's great, but we're looking at correlation, not causation. So if I was to say, if we look at women, a graph of women with horses live longer. That doesn't mean having a horse makes you live longer. It means you're probably wealthier and more off, and there's a reason why you're living longer. So I'm not saying ignore them, but also when we look at things like education, we're looking at the metrics of how well they perform, but we're not looking at the fact that our education is so outdated. It was constructed during the Industrial Revolution to focus on creating doctors and scientists, ignoring the arts, pushing them to the side, and that's still reflected on society. And going back to what you said, health and life, I don't think life should be measured by how long it is. I think life should be measured by how big it is. I've worked with children who are as young as 6 years old, who are in the last year of their life. And when you listen to what these people say, and you listen to people on their deathbeds, you start to realize it's not about the money. It's not about these things. And what we're doing with the Ealing Council is we're creating a creative economy, a currency where we're giving incentive and empowering people without the need for money. But we're fighting with the government consistently, because when they give us budgets, they say, all right, you need to work with at least 3 schools. You need to get at least 2 private events. They want everything statistical, a box to tick, a number to tick, to contain, to say, right, you've done this, so I can tell my boss you've done this. So my question to you, sorry, it's gone really long, but is how flexible are you, and how can I sit down with someone to have a proper in-depth conversation? Because when I worked in the consultancy agency, when we started to talk about these deep things, we would have conversations which lasted 20 hours. So I'm not asking you for 20 hours, but how flexible are you in that you'd be willing to work outside of these rules and saying, we need to work with 6 schools and we need to mark this. We need children getting A stars. If a child is born as a dancer and you're telling them, we all know, right, if you judge everyone by one thing, if you've got a horse, a fish, a cow, and you say swim, we're going to see who's the best swimmer, right? You're going to say the fish is brilliant and the cow's an idiot, right? We're not looking at kids. So I think it's a much deeper issue. And just to finish, you mentioned that we need people in the area earning more, and that will help us, right? But when you do that, other boroughs, they're losing jobs to us. And we all know Steve Nash's game theory. It revolutionized how we do the stock market. We applauded, we done events, we gave him a Nobel Prize. And then everybody went back to doing exactly what we were doing before. We just ignored this great revolution. So I think the problem is, like you said, much deeper. It's not just about helping us. We need to look at everything, and we need to find the solution which is best for everyone.
And can you ask the question, sir?
Oh yeah, so how flexible are you? Is there a way to talk deeper about these issues? And this is great what you're doing, but where is the window that we can meet and have a deeper conversation? And also, how flexible are you in terms of working outside of a formulaic, we need this to achieve this? How willing are you to experiment?
Okay, before we ask Stephen to answer your question, may I ask you to leave your details, at least, your contact number and email address with the officers, so they will take that and will come back to you. But now I'll give it to Stephen to answer this, yeah? Okay, Kelly.
Thank you for the comment. We would be more than happy to have a conversation about sort of different ways of working and to be flexible in the approach. The only caveat I would say is that while we think about doing that, there is still national gateways into the next steps of people's lives. So whilst you talk about children wanting the ambition and the opportunities to be whatever they want to be, and I fully endorse that, that's what I call the gold medal situation. People can achieve their kind of gold medal or achieve the peak of their ambition. We just need to support everyone to be able to achieve that. We're still in a situation where if people do want to go to university or people do want to go on a training program, the national requirement is they have to achieve in a certain way. So while we've got that sort of gateway into the next stage, we have to work within that, but there's no reason about sort of around the margins about doing things differently to allow people to be more creative, to sort of fit in where they want to fit in, and not necessarily to drive the ambition that everyone has to achieve academically, and the kind of the measure being their sort of access to university, especially for those young people who that isn't the next gateway for. Yeah, but it's about creating those ambitions and those opportunities in order to help them achieve whatever it is they want their next stage to be. But honestly, happy to have a conversation. Please do leave your contact details. Oh, grand, thank you.
Kelly, We have only 5 more minutes left on this topic. So may I ask if anyone has any question, please be brief and quick here.
I'm actually recently new to the area as well, and in this time I've seen MB Chicken, I've seen Wingstop open, and it's in the vicinity of a McDonald's and a KFC. So are we working to try and attract other types of businesses to the area? Because there seems to be a lot of temptation around, particularly if we're talking about trying to take on the fact that there's a lot of obesity and overweight children, and I think there's just a lot of temptation. We've spoken about food advertising and things like that, but are we working collaboratively to try and attract other types of businesses into the area so that the high street isn't empty?
Is it Kelly going to answer that? Kelly?
So 2 things. I would love there to be no fast food outlets in this borough. I'll be really honest. One of the pieces of work that we did about 6 or 7 months ago was look at things like access to unhealthy food and unhealthy food advertising. And I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Unhealthy food advertising is targeting people in lower income areas. So if you look at places across the borough, like Councillor Bath is the member from Bedfont, for example, and you compare it to Chiswick, what you'll find is that you've only got to walk a few hundred metres to have glaring in your face advertising that says high fat, high sugar, high salt content, like the McDonald's, like the Kentucky Fried Chicken, shock horror, none of them are good for you. Nutritional value is not adequate. But if you go to Chiswick, for example, which is our most affluent area, you've got to walk 2 miles and you still won't get that degree of advertising. So we can't always stop those fast food outlets coming into the borough. Okay, and if you look on sort of websites about the way that those sort of commercial companies operate, they have a really significant ability to be present almost everywhere. And there was a very good article that was sort of in the media probably about 3 or 4 months ago that essentially said that it's the big guns that come out commercially. McDonald's is not short of a few pounds to bring in really, really high caliber lawyers. And they, quite frankly, for want of a better phrase, they eat local authorities for breakfast. Now, we have to provide the education that encourages families and children by definition, because young children are influenced by what their parents put in front of them, to recognise that that is not a healthy option for children. Now, I'm not saying unhealthy food should be a never event. Ideally, would love it. But, we have to be pragmatic about it. But when we see the number of chicken shops and we see the number of fast food outlets and the regularity that our children in some areas are eating from them, then we know we've got a big problem. And we have a big problem in the borough in general with child obesity, with adult obesity, and the unhealthiest option very much being the easiest option. Our new policy aims to tackle that, particularly around the advertising.
And what I would say, and I go back to my bit about the generational step, we are probably fighting against, as Kelly said, a sector which just has a lot of money and a lot of vested interest, and we could continue that battle now, and we will, because the policy that members brought in about advertising fast food in our own locations is a really good move. But the better move is that evidence, and it's there to see that when children and families have more money in their pocket, their view on the world changes. So if you're experiencing going abroad for a holiday, and if you look to this country in the 70s, when people went abroad, it opened up a whole horizon to the Mediterranean, and people got a different perception of food and how healthy the Mediterranean diet is in comparison to the UK diet. But if you've got more money in your pocket, you will make alternative choices. So I go back to the longer, it's always about battles and wars. We can have this battle, but the war is something we can potentially win if we just get our children to a place where they secure better jobs, they can have a bit more money in their pocket, and they can start making economic choices that influence their health and well-being, and more importantly, their children's. That's what I mean about the generational step. If we work together, we can make that generational step. Council behind the job creation, the skills support, economic growth with investors into the borough, but the community can play its part in that.
Sorry, can I just add, I just wanted to reassure that as councillors and as a cabinet, we also get frustrated about unhealthy advertising, and that was one of the reasons that we adopted a policy at cabinet around limiting some of the advertising, not generally across the board because we don't have the ability to do that, but on our sites and council advertising sites. And although that is not going to cover unhealthy advertising across the whole borough, but it will make some of an attempt as well. But as Stephen said, it's not just that on its own, but it's together with education as well, so that you are aware that actually sometimes when you see things that are advertised that might be advertised as healthy food, and we all do it, sometimes it isn't actually, and it's all about that educational piece as well.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Lily. Now we move on to the councillors. So, councillor, do you have any questions here? Yeah, please.
Hi, thank you for that. I just wanted to say that we have a localities approach, providing local places such as community hubs all over the borough where residents can access services from the council and its partners. And these create opportunities for you, for the residents, to communicate with different communities, to connect and work together to discuss issues, including health issues and concerns, and that affect all of you. So our policy puts residents, service users, staff partners at the heart of everything we can do. So you can get a lot of information there, so please do find out about where your community hubs are. And you can talk about all sorts of issues and give your ideas what you would like to see from the health team and from all the teams. So do look out for your community hubs. Thank you.
Councillor Grewal, thank you very much. Thank you, Kelly and Stephen Forbes. We look forward to seeing the final strategy and want to thank you for the care and attention you are giving.
Apologies, Chair. One final indulgence, because I'm a bit of a freak on this. One of the things that we've put in place is what we call 50 things to do before you're 5, and I do sell this solidly everywhere I go. So there are plenty of those leaflets on the back. It has a QR code. The app is all on the council's website. If you have any family members who are in that category of under 5s, please download this, give it to their mum, their dad, whoever's looking after them, or yourself if you're a grandparent or they're a niece or whatever, because what this does is give you 50 free or less cost, i.e. a bit of washing up liquid, activities that look fun, but they're fun with a purpose. They are about enabling children to learn to do the things that get them ready for school, i.e. shaping the mouth, being able to control the mouth so you can express yourself, being able to sit up, being able to count because you put your bit of hand painting on the wall or whatever. So please do it. It costs nothing. Please use it and spread it across the community if you can. Thank you, Chair. My final indulgence.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Actually, I couldn't see, from here that you were raising hands, so apology for that. Thank you, Kelly and Stephen Forbes. We look forward to seeing the final strategy and want to thank you for the care and attention you are giving this consultation to ensure the voice of the community is being considered. Please remember that this meeting is recorded, and the recording will be available online in a few days. If anyone would like to view the presentation again, so they can do it. The next item on the agenda is action tracker and action plan presentation. We now move on to agenda item 4, which is the presentation of the Central Area Forum Action Tracker and Action Plan by Thomas Allen and our own Community Development Officer, Amoy Gray. So, Amoy?
Thomas, actually.
Thomas, okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Thomas Allen. I'm the Community Development Manager. And my team, one of which is Amoy, if you can wave your hand wherever you are. Oh, there she is on the sofa. So I'm going to move away from the speaker. We are the team that take a lead on organising the area forums to support the councillors as community leaders, and we're supported by our committee clerks and our AV team as well. Over the last few years, we've been steadily undergoing a process of improving area forums to make them more meaningful, relevant and inclusive. And one of the improvements that we're looking to make at the moment with Hounslow Central is the introduction of an area forum action plan, supplemented by an action tracker, which was inspired by one of our residents, Joe, in the audience, talking about better ways in which we can kind of keep track of some of the questions that are coming in the open forum to make sure that we're following up on them and that you're able to kind of track progress as we go. So what I'm going to do is start off by talking about the action plan, and then I'll talk about the action tracker and how we'll be using them moving forward. So first off, what is an area forum action plan? They're new ways for you as residents and community groups to raise local priorities, aspirations and needs, and then work with council officers, with councillors and with partners and each other to develop actions to improve your local community. These actions themselves will be championed by a councillor who will report back on progress to this forum until that action is achieved. So in terms of how it's going to work is you or a community group will have an idea for something they'd like to see in their area. At that point, you'll come and speak to one of your councillors or one of myself or one of my officers. And we will sit down with you and work out how to go about doing it and who needs to be involved. At that point, we kind of pull everyone together and we sense check how achievable that action is. It might not be the case that exactly 100% of everything you're looking to do is achievable, and it might need tweaking, or you might need to go back to the drawing board. But the point is that we'll support you in trying to develop something that will make a difference to where you live. At that point, we come back to the forum. There might be a section where you as the resident or an officer can stand up and present the idea to the wider public, at which point you can ask questions, you can challenge it or support it or opt to volunteer or get involved in some way. And at that point, once it becomes a viable kind of action, one of the councillors will be nominated as an action champion, and we will support them to pull the group together, and they will be responsible for making it happen and reporting back to the forum. If it's achieved between forums, great. If not, there will be updates at each forum, and we also have a new sort of website page where you'll be able to see live updates on those actions as and when they happen, which is quite exciting. And then once the achievement's completed, it gets added to our list so we can kind of keep track and progress. So an action plan, in terms of what it definitely is, it is a means to support residents, to raise local priorities, and it's focused on about achieving real place-based outcomes for people. It's not about commissioning work to the council or out to the community. It's about bringing everyone together to think about what we can do, what the strengths and assets we can draw on from each other to make it happen. And it's about supporting councillors as community leaders to play that leadership role in bringing people together, driving the action forward, keeping on top of it, etc. And by the same token, here at the council, here at the forum, it's about residents keeping on top of those actions and supporting the residents, supporting the councillors to stay focused and deliver those outcomes. What it is not a list of unachievable actions, things that we could never ever bring about happening. This is just making sure that we stay focused and use our resources properly. And it's not a list of actions that aren't supported by those who it would affect or those who would be involved in delivering it. This is not a tyranny of the majority, it's about working together. It's also not a list of business as usual items. We've got plenty of ways in which we deal with those things, and the action tracker, which I'll talk about in a second, is another way in which we will do that. So things like complaints, like information requests, etc., petitions, there are other ways in which we deal with that. And then, different ways in which you can add, as I mentioned earlier, you can always speak to one of us. We do have a Let's Talk Hounslow page. I'll show a QR code for that in a second, so you can scan it, or if you're having trouble accessing it, speak to me or Amoy at the end, and we'll show you how to get there. And of course, you can come to a community development, an area forum and speak to any one of us with a badge, and we're more than happy to sit down with you and listen to your idea. Action trackers then. So action trackers are slightly different to plans. Plans are about sort of developing long-term outcomes. Trackers are about keeping track of the various things that we've said that we wanted information for, or questions that need following up on, or business as usual items that have been raised at the forum and making sure that we've dealt with them in between the forums. So just by contrast, an action plan is not about members' casework, which are personal issues. There's a process for that, and members do that normally. It's not business as usual requests, as I mentioned, on an action plan, nor is it about information requests. If you want those, you can ask us and we'll just do them. And as I said, we've got a different process for petitions and complaints. But action plans are about community projects, and they are about supporting members to update on progress about those community projects. The action tracker, by contrast, that also doesn't have casework or petitions or that kind of thing, but it is about business as usual requests. So things like there's an issue with the bins that haven't been collected for a number of weeks or a number of months, or there's an issue on this that we've raised and Parkin said that they'll look into it, or whatever it is that comes up in the open forum that we think that we can action through business as usual. That one will get collected in the minutes and will be added to the bottom, and you'll be able to see that when the draft minutes are produced. So you'll be able to see those requests in the minutes shortly after the meeting. It also includes requests for information. So sometimes you ask a question, I don't know, maybe how many police officers have patrolled in this particular area, and maybe the police, like tonight, who had to go off to other duties, can't answer that question. But again, we'll note that down in the minutes, and we'll make sure that that's published shortly afterwards, hopefully with a very quick response. So at the end of each of the minutes, you'll be able to see what those actions are that have been raised, and there will be a process for feeding back on those actions in the forum. This will also be available to see on our website, where you can also ask questions as well. So the aim of the game here is essentially to keep an eye on and keep a very clear notice on the questions that are coming through the open forum, and then making sure that we're following up. So if there's anything that we ever miss in between the forums or at the forum day, you'll have a way of spotting it and saying, "Oh, we wanted a response to this, can you please get on it?" That's what we want to do as well. Just finally, really quickly, because I've only got a 10-minute slot, and I didn't want to go through the demos, but we've got a QR code there, so you can scan that and it'll take you through to our Let's Talk page. On that Let's Talk page, you can ask questions ahead of the area forum, and you'll see responses there as well. You can even suggest your ideas for action plan items, and one of my officers will pick it up and come and speak to you. And there are ways in which you can kind of see those updates and comment or like or whatever, or throw support behind some of those updates as well. So we're trying to make the process a little bit more interactive, as well as informative. So it's not that you have to wait 3 months now. You can just go online afterwards and ask the question and have a chat with us, basically. If anyone needs any help or support on this, myself and my colleague Amoy, who are part of the community development team, are more than happy to come and meet with you like we did with Joe and try and improve the process. This is new. We probably haven't got all of it right, but we'd rather try it, get it a bit wrong, and with your help, start tweaking and making improvements as we go. Thank you very much, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Thomas. Is there any question from the floor? So if you have, please raise your hand and we'll send you the mic. Anyone? No? Do we have any question from the councillors? No? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Thomas and Amoy, for your excellent work on the action plan. We look forward to seeing updates at future forums. Now, the next item on the agenda is open forum. This is for 30 minutes. We have received some questions in advance of the meeting. We will read through those questions first and any responses that have been received. Do we have any questions? Only one is there. Okay, yes, already. Okay, that's fine. I think we only had one question, and that was responded today, and we don't have any more questions, but I know that, Thomas, you have couple of questions which you wanted to read. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
go
that's
on.
Fine. Is that working? Yeah? Yeah, cool. So it's one question, but just over 2 cards. Sorry, I got a bit confused. It's from a Hounslow resident. I live on Munster Avenue, and there is an ongoing issue with parking vehicles on the pavement and the double yellow lines, and there seems to be no enforcement to be taking place. Cosy Land Shop, one of the main culprits, and it seems to be the norm. What is the council doing to change this? And then just a supplementary point that the pavement needs redoing, and there seems to be ongoing issues, and that also people drive very fast, and residents are getting worried about someone getting killed.
One question? This is the first one?
There's only one question. Sorry, it's just over 2 cards. Sorry.
Have any officer from the parking? Do you want to answer it? Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. I think it has been an ongoing issue, if I'll be really honest with you. Very recently, about 3 weeks ago, I know the resident, he is sitting in the audience, but I have spoken to him directly as well, and we've had a date for the work to start at Munster Avenue for the pavements. So what happened, there was some issues for the Staines Road, which we had to prioritize, and we'll be going back in, I think, August time to start that work. Either August or September time to do the pavements, which we've already agreed that we will be doing them this year, from start of Causey launch until number 59. When it comes to the Causey launch, we have taken that up. I'm sorry, I can't publicly say that what we are doing with Causey launch issue, but recently enforcement team has been out. They have been issuing tickets. I'm happy to speak to our parking team and get the information and send it directly to him that how many tickets have been issued at the Causey launch. But we would just request for him to be with us, actually everyone on Munster Avenue. The road will get done, and we are on top of the casework for it to be sorted this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please. The lady in the second row first.
Thank you very much. As being a disabled person in Hounslow Borough, I've got an issue with the transport, because buses are okay, but if I order a taxi, say I want to go in the evening, and there is no taxi, so they say we give you the booking reference, and then at the end, when you wait there, they say, no, we haven't allocated a taxi for you. Though the council is paying £250 for every resident towards the taxi so that we get a little bit cheaper, but still it's not working. And I have done several times. I have been to Hounslow House, I reported that, they written a letter, but no response at all. Last committee meeting here, I came here, I booked the taxi, and the taxi never turned up. I was booked at 9 o'clock, 9:30, no taxi turned up. So that is the issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you for raising these questions. I'll ask the officer. Do you want to answer? Samia, Councillor Samia is going to answer that.
Thank you very much. Is that the special transport team you have spoken to?
No, this is the transport, is a taxi card, and I've got the Comcab people or the Capital Call. They both are useless. They are not responding, they're not working. We got Dial-A-Ride, yes, that is the only service we have. And Dial-A-Ride depends on whether you are lucky to get it or you are not lucky to get the ride.
Right, thank you so much for your question. What I will do, I'll take your details. I'm sorry that you haven't had any response from Hounslow House, but normally we are very quick if it's a special transport service or travel assistant with anything, because some of it sits with myself as a lead member. I'm happy to speak to you face to face just now after the meeting, and I'll take your details and I'll see what we can do to help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Samia, and thank you for your question. Is there any other issue anyone wants to raise? This is the time you can raise it, and if we don't have the answer here, we'll take your details and the response will come to you from the relevant department.
Hello, my name is Christine Vincent. What I want to raise is I like to shop in Hounslow, but I was overwhelmed at all the rubbish, all the overfilled bins that we couldn't even walk through Hounslow town. It was so discouraging. It's no wonder businesses don't want to invest in Hounslow. It's because it is so dirty and unkept. I know there are people that dump carrier bags, but it's not everybody that does that. I have reported a number of bins that are so overspilled with rubbish that haven't been emptied in Hounslow town. Now, I want to use the shopping centre, but my friends say, no, let's go on, because it's too dirty. Now, that is very shameful. Surely the managers who work in the offices use the town centre and can see it. They don't need someone like me to keep reporting it. You know, what are the managers doing? I'm very disappointed with that. It's just so, all the bins by the bus stops are never emptied. I've got countless pictures I can show anybody, and it's really, really shameful. You know, we talk about health, but that's basic hygiene. Basic hygiene. It's like the, sorry, my question seems very menial compared to everything that you're all doing. And by the way, that's the only thing. I think Hounslow are doing a marvellous job with everything else. I'm sorry, but they are. You know, you have a lot of clubs going on for everybody. It's amazing. It's only if you could just make young people proud of where they live. That would make such a difference. We could walk around. You don't have to join a gym. You could walk through the town centre. You can get exercise that way. You know, it's just sad. I would clean it. I'd volunteer to clean it. I don't mind, and I have done it as well. But the thing is, what can we do about it? Is it just me who feels this way? I don't know. You know, sorry, silly question.
Thank you for
You're
your...
doing a good job otherwise. Just clean the bins and please clean the streets.
Thank you for your question. Yeah. Councillor Preetham Grewal is going to answer this.
Thank you for your question. Yes, I agree with you. I reported that several times myself. We have actually visited the high street with the officers a couple of times. It's getting better now. I have 2 cleaners full-time there. One working on this side, the other working on the other side. Yes, we have spoken to McDonald's manager as well. They should have a responsibility as well, because mostly it's their rubbish come into those bins. Samia will talk to you about children. Samia, you want to talk to?
Right, thank you very much. I think we are doing whatever we can do to make Hounslow cleaner, safer and greener for our young people. But honestly speaking, when it comes to other people, we have been, myself and Pritam, we've dealt with one casework which was just behind TK Maxx. When was it, 5-6 days ago? The bins were all emptied and then they were refilled again, and people had literally, within 24 hours, made it exactly the same scenario. So then we have rang up same day enforcement team as well to keep an eye on it. But we have been on top of the bins for cleaning, and I'm proud of our youngsters. Whenever they walk through, I've got so many children from Heathland and Kingsley Academy. They've, like, you know, from Lambton as well, they've kind of send me pictures as well, send Pritam and Ajmer pictures as well. But thank you very much. I understand there is an issue, but we are trying our level best to deal with it. Thank you very much, and thank you for the comment that we do a marvelous job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Samia. Can I ask the officer to take the details of the lady, so at least once we do anything, we'll inform her. So would you be able to leave your details with the officers? Thank you. Councillor Bandara, you want to say something?
Thank you for your comments and letting us know where the bins are really overfull. And it is, you know, it isn't very nice to look at, I agree with you. But I assure you, we do send teams out daily in Hounslow Town to clean up the bins and the area. Obviously, we can't keep on top of everything. You have something called Fix My Street, which you can use and raise these, and they agree to come within 24 hours. And they usually come earlier than that to come and pick up any rubbish or litter that is reported. Anything, mattresses, anything. The other thing, I think it's great that you want to get involved with local groups and help pick up litter. We have regular action groups in Cranford and Heston and in Hounslow as well. So if you want to get involved with those, we as councillors get involved as well. So it'd be lovely to see you there. And it'd be lovely to, and then it's another way of getting involved with the local community, get to know other people, network and socialise. So thank you for raising your points and your question, and look forward to seeing you come and join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bandana Chopra. Is there any other question from the floor? No? May I ask any councillors, do you have any questions? No? Okay. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Okay, the next item on the agenda is any other urgent business. I have not been notified of any other urgent business. Therefore, please note that date of the next meeting is 17th July 2025. The meeting is now closed. Thank you everyone for participating in this forum. Thank you.
Thank you all.